When I first started learning unusual piano chords, one thing I noticed very quickly, most tutorials make them look more complicated than they really are. And honestly, that's where a structured learning system helped me a lot. I remember struggling to understand extended chords and inversions until I started using the Pianoforall program. What I liked about it is that it breaks chords down step by step with sound examples, so you're not just reading theory, you actually hear how chords should sound. That made chords like the C major 7th flat 5th much easier to understand. If you're curious about that learning method, I've placed the link in the description below where you can see more details. Today, we're going to look at this chord in a simple way so you can play it immediately and also understand how its inversions work. Now, before we jump into the notes, let's talk briefly about what the C major 7th flat 5th chord, often written as C maj 7 flat 5, actually is. This is a slightly tense, jazzy sounding chord. It's not as common as a regular major 7th, but when composers use it, it creates a very interesting color. You'll often hear it in jazz progressions, film music, and sometimes modern pop arrangements. The secret behind it is simple. It's basically a major 7th chord with a flattened 5th. That small change completely transforms the sound. Root position. The root position of the C major 7th flat 5th chord contains the notes C, E, G flat, B. Here's what I've noticed when teaching or practicing this chord. If you already know a regular C major 7th chord, you're almost done. Normally, you would play C, E, G, B. But in this case, the G becomes G flat. That tiny shift creates the slightly mysterious sound the chord is known for. When you play these 4 notes together on the piano, listen carefully. It feels stable because of the major 7th, but also slightly unsettled because of that flattened 5th. Try pressing those 4 notes slowly. C, E, G flat, and B. Hold them for a second. Let your ear absorb the sound. First inversion. The first inversion places E in the bass, giving us E, G flat, B, C. Inversions are one of those things that seem technical at first, but once you practice them a few times, they become second nature. The easiest way to think about it is simple. Take the lowest note and move it up an octave. That's exactly what we do here. Instead of starting with C, we start with E. I've tested this with beginners many times, and this is usually the moment they realize chords aren't fixed shapes, they're flexible. Playing inversions like this helps your chord transitions sound smoother, especially if you're accompanying a singer or playing jazz progressions. So again, the first inversion is E, G flat, B, C. Next, we move to the second inversion, with G flat in the bass, which gives us G flat, B, C, E. Here's a simple trick I like to use. Instead of memorizing every inversion separately, just keep moving the lowest note up. That's all we're doing again. The E moves to the top, and now G flat becomes the bass note. This inversion has a slightly different feeling. When I play it in chord progressions, it often sounds more tense and dramatic. That's why film composers sometimes love chords like this. They add emotional color without needing complex melodies. So remember, the second inversion is G flat, B, C, E. Third inversion. Finally, we reach the third inversion with B in the bass, which gives us B, C, E, G flat. This is the last inversion before we cycle back to the root position again. What's interesting here is that the B in the bass creates a very strong pull. If you play this chord and then resolve to a C major chord, the movement feels really satisfying. Try playing it slowly. B, C, E, G flat. Then move back to the root position, C, E, G flat, B. Hear how the chord settles? That's the kind of movement musicians use in jazz and cinematic music. Quick practice tip. Here's something that helped me personally when learning chords like this. Instead of memorizing them on paper, I would play all inversions in a loop. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion, then back again. After a few minutes, your fingers start recognizing the pattern automatically. This is actually one of the reasons structured piano systems can speed things up. For example, when I was practicing with the Pianoforall program, the combination of video lessons and inbuilt audio examples made it much easier to hear how chords should sound in real music. The program includes 10 eBooks, around 300 video lessons, and over 1,000 sound files. So instead of guessing whether you're playing correctly, you can instantly compare the sound. If you're curious about it, I've left more details in the description. So, to quickly recap, the C major 7th flat 5th chord has 4 main positions on piano. Root position, C, E, G flat, B. First inversion, E, G flat, B, C. Second inversion, G flat, B, C, E. Third inversion, B, C, E, G flat. Once you practice these a few times, they become surprisingly easy. And the best part is that chords like this instantly add a richer, more professional sound to your playing.